Brother Day is embarking on a journey that no other Cleon has ever undertaken. It is a journey that only half the people survive. Will he make it? And if so, will it be transformative? Meanwhile, Salvor, Lewis, and the Anacreon warriors are about to make their own journey, and they may not know where if they cannot gain control of the ship before it jumps to an unknown destination. Hello and welcome to Road Goes Ever On and On. Today we are discussing the 8th episode of the hit science fiction series Foundation, so spoilers are ahead. And speaking of journeys, if you want to embark on a journey with us, just be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for notifications. And with that, let's put on our ceremonial robes. Let's take off our shoes, because our first journey is to the Spiral. And what I kind of wanted to talk about with this scene is there's something we've mentioned a few times, and I feel like I don't want to say that I've been getting it wrong. That also implies that you've been getting it wrong. But I now have more of an inclination another direction, which is we've said that this has reminded us of some media where the science fiction is both futuristic and old. But to me, it's not Wild Wild West old. So I don't actually feel like it's Star Wars or it's like Firefly, because to me it's giving off serious fantasy vibes. It reminds, if you think about it, like most fantasy is based in worlds that kind of take place in like the Middle Ages, and so you have a lot of the influences from the Middle Ages. You have like gods similar to the pagan gods, versus religions where there's maybe, only one god. And I feel like there are so many things that kind of remind me of much older times. I mentioned like the Roman Empire, but like there's things here like the journey that Day's about to take looks very much like a pilgrimage, like to the Holy Land. There's I noticed that the ship, the Invictus, the weapons are, they're more pluses than crosses, but are kind of like cross-shaped. And then like the viewport on the bridge is also that kind of cross shape. And I don't know, it to me it's like mash of like sci-fi and fantasy, if that makes any sense.
No, it does kind of make sense, because like when I looked at the Invictus, I thought the Invictus looked like an atom, like, and especially when it was getting ready to jump like the other one was, I thought it looked like a black hole, like I feel like most of their jump technology looks like. But like you're saying, it does have that fantasy vibe, like especially on what Cleon's going through. Other than him not having a belly button, like this could have been in Lawrence of Arabia or anything like that. Like this doesn't,
it's like sand dunes,
right?
Two-piece robes, like no sandals, like it,
no technology. Everybody is in modest clothing. The helpers on the path are helping, and it felt like a pilgrimage.
Right. Like they're pouring water from like clay vessels. Like the triple goddess, reminds me more of pagan gods, especially since, disaster befell her and she broke into three. She used to be one and now she's three. Like I feel like the monotheistic religions are generally a little bit more, like nothing bad happens to the god, versus the pagan gods, bad stuff happened to them all the time.
Oh yeah.
There were even gods that were like chained to rocks so that every day a buzzard could feed on their liver. Like bad things befell them.
Yes. And I do really like the juxtaposition, like especially of their planet, like where you see like the giant like temple that's made out of stone, and yet it has like a docking bay for Day's ship, and it's this giant like lavish ship, and him having to take out the nanobots in this episode and get rid of his shield. He had to like essentially get rid of his technology to even make this pilgrimage.
Right. It really shows the power of that religion, that it can, you know, almost make like empire bend the knee, which then was interesting because it kind of reminded me of people in history who then have tried to, use religion to be able to get their power, where they become kind of religious symbols so that they can continue to lead people when leading people through election or other ways doesn't necessarily work, because that's basically what Day does. Day hijacks, this ritual, figures out a way to take advantage of it. So now he seems like he put himself on par with like the triple goddess. He's like, oh, three coming from one, just like me and my brothers.
I want to say that this episode, I feel like, did a masterclass rug pull on us with Cleon.
It did. Oh, and it was heartbreaking too.
Oh my god, so heartbreaking. I felt like they were humanizing Cleon so much in this episode. He walked with the friend he fell to one knee and the friend got him up, and then his friend fell to the one knee and he was there to help him.
I didn't know if he was going to do it. Like,
yeah.
I didn't know if this Cleon would do that, and when he did, and he it seemed like he was showing compassion.
Yes, and like camaraderie.
He wanted to pull him off the road and like help him. Like, look, if you're gonna stop, at least let me help you off,
so they can give you water. And he was like, no. Right. And like everything about it, you see Cleon looks like he's learned a lesson, like that he has gone to hit like the max amount that he can give to experience this. And man, when it showed that scene that showed him have the vision and the experience, and I was like, I always believed in Cleon. I knew he could do it. And then that rug pull at the end, he didn't feel anything. He didn't have a vision. So manipulative too.
Yes, but like the nice thing is, I like that they set up all of the seeds for it, so it didn't. While it did surprise us, it
was earned.
Afterwards, it was earned. It didn't feel like it came out of nowhere, because that's always something that kind of bugs me, is when it's just completely out of nowhere, versus you see how he pulled the story of the salt moving from his companion on this path, and he saw her flower, which is like how he kind of put all of these things together. And I think you could even, as much as you saw his compassion on the trail, I think you can also connect a dot with his compassion to his also not really understanding this religion when his friend put down the second knee and he said, at least let me help you off this path. Demerzel had said at the beginning that you have to make a choice when you put down the second knee of yourself pulling yourself off the path or dying there. So to me, that shows his lack of understanding of what this is really about, and therefore does kind of point to that moment of, even if he has that compassion, he's not necessarily doing this for the right reasons, which kind of makes me wonder, Halima thinks he doesn't have a soul. I'm on the fence of, not having a soul or not being worthy of a vision, because Demerzel did say if the maiden
gives you a vision,
chooses, then they will give you a so it's like you can not get one,
right? But
it just really interesting scene. And I loved the kind of end of the episode when we see Demerzel and Halima together, because I feel like this is possibly the seeds of Demerzel finally breaking her programming.
Yes.
I thought it was absolutely beautiful when Halima realized the position that she was in and gave Demerzel a way for it to be a choice and for it to be something that Demerzel wanted to do. She was saying, that this is what the maiden wants,
And not Cleon.
and she's going to be able to move on to her next life now. So like in that to that end, you could possibly argue that Demerzel was making a choice to do what she wanted,
Yes.
though
Instead
it did
of
coincide with what she was being told to do. But it was very interesting and beautiful framing.
oh yeah, with Demerzel and Halima, I thought that that was great of like having that Demerzel being like, I don't have like in your view, I don't have a soul. But even I still feel like Halima recognizes her Demerzel's soul more than she recognizes Cleon's soul. Like, and I think that that was why she was giving her that out of being like, you do have a soul. You are not like Cleon. You are better than Cleon. You are better than the programming. I love Demerzel's the actress that plays her portrayal of Demerzel. She, I don't know if you notice, but most of the time when she's walking, she has her arms like this and they don't move. And she's very much like she speaks like this, and it gives her that kind of angular, robotic, pointy shape. And it wasn't until she broke down with Halima that her arms came down, and then she brought him down and she became that human. She was there with Halima getting
Right.
permission essentially from the mother to kill her. And then as
Right.
soon as it was like after they had the conversation and she said, it's already happened, you won't feel anything. And as soon as like she wasn't even crying anymore, back to robot form. Her arms instantly
Right.
went like that. Like, just little things like that make her character so believable.
Absolutely. And it's wild to find that we knew that she was from before, but we didn't know it was, now minimum 11,000 years before.
That's
That's
Yeah, that's when she made her journey.
that's almost three times the age of like the Cleons. The
Yeah,
like the Cleonic reign. Like
right.
that's absolutely wild. So I kind of love those different tastes that we're getting for I said the last episode of stuff from further in the past. This ship, the Invictus. Like interesting that in seeing the Invictus, we're learning about more about the spacers. You know
Yes.
that they
Augmented
are,
people
yes,
to make the jumps.
right, and that they didn't have that technology before, and we're kind of jacking people in Matrix style. So really, really kind of interesting. You know, I if this jump does happen, and it certainly seemed like it happened, does this? I don't know. I'm curious about like what happens to the people that can't deal with jumps. So like Lewis isn't necessarily dead yet. Rowan and Farah, all three of them, shouldn't be able to deal with jumps. We haven't actually seen the effect of what happens to people who aren't special. We just know that like you do need to be protected from it.
I do feel like we learned, how like Lewis was kind of talking about the jump itself, how it's kind of like intuition and science put together to like fold space on itself. And I don't know how Farah and the other guy are gonna fare, but because Gale was able to wake up, I think because of their intuition, they are able to survive those jumps better. Because the way that he explained space, it's like, and the way that one of the Demerzel explained it, like the jump. She was saying that, like, if I could explain to you what it looked like, then there would be no need for you to, like, sleep through it. And so we saw Gaal that was able to wake up during that thing. I think it's because of the intuition that she has that can help her get through it.
Yeah, so I'm not worried about her.
Oh, yes. So I think
I'm worried
Salvor
about the
can.
other three. Like, are they gonna be cuckoo bananas?
Maybe. And Lewis has two young daughters.
So here's the only thing that I was possibly thinking. We didn't actually see Lewis die.
Mm-hmm.
But we also know that he's possibly bleeding out. He's at least bleeding. Possibly bleeding out.
Yep.
And if it's kind of like a wish and he assumes that whoever hooks themselves up to it is going to die anyway, what if he
Last minute.
self-jacks while, because the whole fight was going on. I don't think anybody was paying attention to him, especially since he's been useless this entire show.
I do really like that theory that Lewis was.
And it's like the jump is like a wish, and so he's like, there's no place like home,
No place like home. That
you
would.
know. And so he wishes to get back home, and that's, he finally does something useful.
To me, this episode was a lot about sacrifice.
Yeah.
We saw Day sacrifice, himself by going on the spiral. Demerzel sacrificed a little bit of herself. Farah talks about she's ready to sacrifice herself. And Rowan talks, basically, when Salvor's talking to him about his daughter, he's willing to sacrifice his daughter. There were all these parallels of sacrifice. Like, Gaal was ready to sacrifice herself because of Harry's lies. And so I had originally thought Lewis was going to sacrifice himself. And that was like my whole plan for this episode, was that he was going to be the one that's like, I'm going to do it. Like, he was finally going to step up. So when he didn't, I was a little disappointed, but now your theory makes a lot more sense.
I mean, I just hope that something comes out of him.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's been pretty useless.
Very useless.
So there was, speaking of Lewis, or at least a scene he was in, because he hasn't done much, so I guess I'm not really talking about him. But when they first went into the bridge, one of the things they see is like this sphere that's lit that has, like, in blood, EXO on it.
Yes.
And I'm curious of the significance, because they did. It's interesting that they did this with too, where they like said, some people say this about the vault, some people say this about the vault. So they're just like, it's almost like they're throwing out their own fan theories.
Yeah.
And then the same thing where Lewis is like, oh, is that like a whatever, an officer, executive officer? And then she's like, well, it could be like EXO also means, but like external, like from outside.
Right. Like an exosuit.
Right.
Outside the galaxy.
I wonder about what that means, because to me, that seems, I kind of see a connection between that and the vault, which is another kind of mysterious thing, which is pointing at something external. And I'm gonna throw out a wild theory.
Ooh, you have a theory.
Truly wild theory. Where these jump ships are folding dimensions, right? Like I think that's how they're moving.
Folding
like
space,
they fold a dimension of space so that 2 points that should be distance touch. I wonder if there is any possibility that time could be a folded dimension, because I don't feel like the vault is. It doesn't feel like it's alien because it seems like it is giving Salvor insight about her connections to important things from the past. Like so far she's been learning. She saw like Raish as a kid. She saw Raish with the blade that is used to get onto the one ship, and then she saw the plan between Harry and Raish, where Harry's like, "Look, you got to kill me because otherwise, I know you're not gonna come with me, and the two of us have to go." So it seems like it is talking to her about not very alien things.
Yes, it does seem that it has that connection with Raish. Like, and I don't know if it's because it's Salvor, but it does seem that, like, the ghost of Raish, in a way, is kind of guiding her on this journey. It does seem from people.
Right.
So
That's a wild theory.
so you think that the vault maybe came maybe from Foundation 2? The other Foundation? But, like, maybe in the future?
I don't know. I because there's very little evidence for this. It's basically just it doesn't seem like it looked so alien, but it doesn't seem alien. And it seems like it's giving them information that is very important to them rather than giving us outside information of like, here's information about our culture and our languages, people. Like, it didn't seem like it was, one of those type of things where it's like reaching out to another type of people and trying to like bridge a gap.
It does also seem that it is possibly protecting the Foundation.
Yes.
We do know that the null field is expanding, and it seems like it's expanding more and more now that they're taken over.
Right.
So it almost seems like it is like, okay, we're going to try to get these Anacreans out of here. So I do think I think that it's not an unreasonable theory that it's connected to Harry, the Foundation, Raish.
I don't know if it's necessarily Harry. I don't, because it does seem like there are some things like outside of what he expects. He didn't expect Salvor to be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
He expected Raish to be there and not Gale, which I kind of feel bad for Gale. Like, she's kind of been on this like roller coaster of being lied to, manipulated, and then she just wants some answers. And like Harry's like, nah, it's better if you don't know. And she was like, you were gonna leave me on Terminus,
right?
Like that, like you were gonna go off doing whatever, saving your old world. I was gonna be 60 years ready to die being attacked by Anacreans. You just left me there. I would be pissed if I was Gale.
Yeah. And, with her current trajectory, like, by the time if she's actually headed back to her home planet, her family's going to be long gone.
Yeah, I don't understand the move to go back to Synax. Like, she knows the math. She knows that Synax is going to be destroyed, and 135 years, 38 years, somewhere around there. Like, there's no chance by the time you get there that they fixed it.
I think she is just trying to make her own choices about her own life. Rather than being manipulated and forced to do things, not given information, being treated like a tool that is good for use. I think she wants some agency in her life. And even if that means going back to a homeworld that can't look anything like what it was before.
Yeah.
That's kind of my guess.
That's, yeah. I don't think she's gonna go back to Sinex. I don't know. I don't know what her future holds. I don't know if Harry's gonna let her.
I think she seems to know so much of what's going on, and like, what if she's narrating all of this from far, far in the future?
Like 135 years?
Like
Like
something like,
she wakes up at Synax and she's like, oh, I slept through the whole thing, but I know the whole events that happened, so I'm going to tell you what happened.
possibly,
Eh.
possibly. We'll see. These are just some wild, wild theories.
Well, our one theory was correct that Hugo survived. We knew.
Yes.
We knew he survived. We knew he didn't die. I did like that. I didn't know what his plan was going to be, like drifting off. But
Yeah.
I do like that they showed us the Thespian mining area.
Thespians. Bunch of actors.
I'm sorry, Thespin. What are they?
Oh,
Aren't they?
Thespians.
Thespins.
Thespin.
They're not. They could be actors. They could.
Oh, good day.
This could be the planet of actors.
We are a bunch of thespians.
Here to perform for the king, the empire. But it showed the Thespin mining colony on that planet, the last episode. So it gave us the information. We just
Yes.
didn't realize it. And that was another sacrifice. Like, he went off to maybe call in for help. He doesn't know if they're going to answer.
Right. Yeah.
That was
that was a big shot in the dark, and it could have not at all paid off.
And it looked like it wasn't going to pay off.
Right.
It looked like nobody was getting back to him.
Right. Although I still thought, like, his story isn't... They wouldn't have, like, made it look like he died and then back just so that he can, like, starve to death.
I still think he's the mule. We'll get that.
We can, yeah. It's still a very real possibility. Random kind of shift into the scene that I thought was interestingly filmed. So this is just like an interesting film technique. Going very back to like the spiral.
Mm-hmm.
When Dave first dropped to his knee, I loved the sound on this. The speech sounded muted, and there was like a high-pitched kind of metallic sound. And honestly, so I've probably told you this, but most of our viewers probably don't know. I'm a weenie when it comes to needles. Like, I've passed out from getting my blood drawn, or even just going to the dentist and like getting Novocaine. So I'm very experienced with passing out. And I thought this, so as an expert in somebody that has passed out, I thought this was a brilliant portrayal of what it's like when the whole world is like collapsing around you. Like the scope of it got much smaller. They didn't quite have like blacked edges, which is almost like what I see, but like then the sound always sounds kind of like muffled and like tinny. And I instantly was like, I know what you're going through.
You're about to pass out.
Because I've been there, buddy.
That's so funny, because I don't believe I've ever, maybe like once when I was younger and I was like in a like big thing, like, a performance or something, I feel like maybe I felt like woozy, but like I've never passed out. So I just thought that was some good way of showing it, but to actually find out that that's what you go through, that's
very, very accurate.
Spot on, you would say.
Spot on. Once again, as an expert on the matter, possibly even like a connoisseur.
Are you the sommelier of passing out? As a little side note,
Yes.
when Demerzel is confronting Day at the table when he's eating dinner.
Speaking of sommeliers, like that was quite the spread that was
Right.
there.
He
Yes.
had 2 glasses of wine like he did with the Anacreons and the Thespins. He
And the
had
Thespians, yes.
the red and the white wine on the table with him, and the Thespin
I
showed
mean,
up.
he was doing it up.
Oh yeah.
Like that was a ridiculous
Oh yeah.
banquet. Like at
Exorbitant.
that point, I think you know, I wonder if he had gotten a vision, if this could have been transformative.
I think that
And
Dawn, if Dawn went on that journey right now, I think he would be gifted a vision. And I don't think Day is worthy.
I thought I did think that Day was going a different direction, like away from the stick, and then
I wrote in my notes, I was like, so proud of Day. Knew he could do it. Such a good guy.
I know, yeah, I knew you could
So
do
proud of
it.
Day. Like, well,
So,
because I was so humanized with him when he was like helping his buddy, and like I thought it was such a good, juxtaposition of him versus this guy, where he's
yeah,
like he's Empire. He even lies to him about who he
yeah,
is, and Empire lives this lavish life in
right,
Trantor with the clear air, and this guy lives on this like backwoods chemical planet so that
yeah,
Empire can have a little bit of nice glazes for his
tiles, right,
his textiles like
what,
that, like, and so it's like they're going on this thing together, they're becoming
yeah,
chums, they're best buds. I was all about Day. Yeah, and I've mentioned I like Lee Pace as an actor, so like
yeah.
right there, he talks about his vision, I'm seeing it and I'm like, I knew he had it in him. I knew from the beginning. And then of course he saw nothing.
I know.
Another thing, back to the Hugo thing, she knew Hugo was gonna do it. Cause like when the Thespin showed up, she said, "You did get there, Hugo." Like, so she knew Hugo was gonna miss, and like they had this plan that he was gonna go try and do this thing.
Or maybe I mean, like who else is gonna call in Thespins? That might have just been like nobody else knows that they're there, but the one, like, there's one person not accounted for, and it's a Thespin floating off into space that used
Uh,
to work on these kind of like mining areas.
I felt like the way that she said it, it made it seem like she knew that he was trying to do that. Like that was
I
part of their plan.
I don't think so because and maybe, but or maybe this is just like poor writing because she did legitimately look upset when he shot off, and
That's good
far as like
or she's such a good actor, Salvor.
she's not an actor.
Salvor's actor. She's like, oh no,
She's she doesn't even deal with other people. Like she like people shun her. She works on like the outskirts. So she's one of those people that like wouldn't know how to act towards other people if she needed to, you know?
I think she
She
knew.
is
I think she knew.
her boyfriend may be a thespian, but she is not.
She is a thespian. She has learned from Hugo everything that she needs to do to be the best stage performance. As a thespian, he said, look, you have to sell it that I'm dead. If we want this to work, you have to sell it that I'm dead. And she said, okay.
That opening scene, by the way, was heartbreaking. You know, like seeing Anacreon, like you can they're in a forest. It's like two kids at play. Like there couldn't be anything more innocent than that. The You can tell that the place is vibrant because you can hear all of the birds. You know, and then that moment when she looks up, you just like see all of that. It's like, oh no.
I feel like it
I know the
really
unfortunate connection there.
humanizes Farah and what she went through, and like it looks like, I'm assuming that was her little brother. And
Right.
and honestly, if I was Farah, I would feel like whatever deity that she believes in was telling her to continue on too, because like she, tripled the life expectancy after living on a bombed planet. She, this legendary ghost ship that nobody's seen for 500 years magically jumps in
Right.
front of her. Like, I would be like, okay, I'm supposed to go give it back to Empire. Like that,
Yeah.
I sympathize with her. But with that, I think our journey has come to an end. Thank you guys so much for joining along with us. Next week, we will be doing Foundation Episode 9, so come back here next week, and we'll see you then. I'm Mark, this is Sterling.
Thanks.